So back in the land, when judges led Israel, there was a deep famine that was amongst the land. There was a man, Elimelech, his wife Naomi, and his two sons, Mahlon and Chilion. He decided to pack up the family and from Bethlehem and move to Moab, where the land was plentiful at the time. It doesn't give time as to how long they were there. Amalek dies. And Naomi is widowed. But she has her two sons. And those two sons are there with her to help care for her. The two sons marry Orpah and Ruth. And they're all together. In 10 years, they reside together as a family. And then those two husbands die. So now Naomi is left without a husband and without her sons. And her heart becomes troubled. And she decides that she needs to make a plan. And she hears that the God of Israel was gracious back to the land of Bethlehem. And she decides that she's going to take her two daughters and they're going to head through. And they're going to go back to Bethlehem. She packs them up and they go out. And as she's walking around, she says she's with her two daughters. And she says, as they're traveling, and she stops on the road. She says, daughters, go back. Go back home. Go back to your mothers. Go back to your land. Why would you stay with me? You need to go back. And the daughters, they cried right out in the open. And they insisted on coming with her. But Naomi insisted. Naomi says, no. Thank you, daughters, but you need to go back. Go have a new life. Go find a new husband. Go find joy again. And Orpah listens. She grabs her staff and she kisses her mother-in-law and she returns to Moab. But Ruth looks at her mother-in-law and says, no. Don't make me go back. Where you go, I will go. Your people are now my people, and your God is now my God. Where you die, that's where I will die. And God help me, not even death itself is going to separate us. So Naomi hears the cries, and she stops, and she says, okay, we will go together. And so they go and they return to Bethlehem. And as they are walking into the city, the town people start to buzz. And they're like, is this Naomi? Is this our Naomi who left so many years ago? But Naomi stops. No, do not call me Naomi. My name is Bitter Mara. For God has laid a big blow on me. I left full, and now I come back empty. I only have the clothes on my back. And so they dwelt in the land of Bethlehem. And when they got there, it was right at the beginning of the harvest. And Naomi actually had a distant relative who was very rich and very prominent in the community. He was a relative of Elimelech's, her dead husband, and his name was Boaz. And
then one day, Ruth approaches her mother-in-law, Naomi, and asks her, I'm going to go work, and I'm going to go find a field where the harvesters will be kind to me, and they will let me glean in their wake and pick up the strays.
And Naomi looks at her and says, "Go, my daughter, go."
And so Ruth goes, and she starts gleaning after harvesters, and she gets to the part of the field that's owned by Boaz.
And Boaz looks amongst his foreman, and he says, Who's that woman over there? She's gleaning. What is she doing? Who is she?
And his head foreman, he looks at Boaz, and he says, why, that's the Moabite. You know, Naomi's daughter-in-law, she's come, and she was here early in the morning. And she's been working so hard, I haven't even seen her take a break. And Boaz takes notice of her, and he calls her over to him.
Daughter, come. You are welcome to work after my women. It is okay for you to be here. I want you to drink when you need to drink. This is a safe place for you to be.
And Ruth, it says that Ruth falls and she bows low, and she says, such kindness, such grace. I am an immigrant in your land, and yet I have found favor and blessing in your eyes. And so they go and they continue to harvest, and then it's lunchtime, and Boaz again tells her to come.
Come, eat and drink. Dip your bread into wine.
And Ruth eats with him, and she eats with the rest of the harvesters, and she eats to her full, till she's full, and then she still has stuff left over. And then Boaz again approaches his servants, and he says,
I want you to make this easy on her. I want her to have plentiful. So when you go before, give her extra. Don't glean it all. Let her be able to come forth and glean some on her own.
And so they go back to work, and she works until evening. And when she's gathering up what she has gleaned and she's threshing it, she fills an entire sack of barley. And she grabs that, and she grabs her leftovers from lunch, and she heads back into Bethlehem to Naomi. And when Naomi sees her, she is excited, and she asks her,
Daughter, what happened? Where did this come from? Tell me about your day.
and she said, I was gleaning in the field of Boaz. And Naomi gets so excited.
Praise be the Lord. Daughter, do you know who that is? That is Boaz. That is in our circle of redeemers. He is our closest relative. There is a God, and he's not forgotten us, and he will see us through.
And Boaz says, well, get this. He told me that I can stay in his field until the end of the harvest. And again, Naomi gets so excited because it was dangerous for a woman to be behind the harvesters, especially alone in the fields. And so she tells Ruth,
It is good, my dear daughter. I want you to go back into that field, so that field is safe. You will not be raped or hurt, that this is a safe place to be under.
and so Ruth does that, and she stays in Boaz's field until the end of both barley and wheat harvests. And then Naomi comes to her towards the end of the harvest, and she tells her,
Ruth, it is time. I want you to find a husband. I want you to go forth. I want you to present yourself to Boaz. I want you to take a bath. I want you to lavish yourself in perfume. Dress beautifully. Go before the harvest, the barley harvest. And when Boaz is there, and after he's had plenty to eat and plenty to drink, I want you to present yourself before him. I want you to go before when he's ready to lay down and to go to sleep, to lay at the bottom of his feet and show him that you are available for marriage.
And Ruth does it, and she says, I will do what you've asked me to do. And so she goes and she gets, ready. She puts on her perfume and she looks all nice, and she goes to the party. And she goes to the party quietly so that many people, they don't know that she's there. And she watches Boaz, and she watches as he eats and as he drinks until he's had his fill. And then he goes and he leaves the party and he lies down on the threshing floor next to a stack of barley. And she goes over to him and she uncovers his blanket from his feet, and then she lies there and she is asleep as well. And then in the middle of the night, Boaz awakens. It says he was startled, and he looks down and he sees a woman laying at his feet.
What is this? Who are you?
And Ruth says, I am Ruth, your maiden. Please take me under your protection. You do have the right to marry me. You are in our circle of covenant redeemers. And Boaz looks at her and he has favor on her. And he says,
Dear daughter, this is a blessing. This is a splendid love of expressing. An splendid expression of love. I see you. I will accept this and I will honor you. But there is one that is closer than I. So I need to go before and I need to deal with that. So right now, I want you to rest tonight. I want you to rest assured that I will take care of this. As Lord is seeing me, I will go before on your behalf.
And so Ruth rests there for the night. But she gets up early before people can know that she's there. And Boaz doesn't let her go home empty-handed. He asks her to take off her shawl, and he measures out 6 lengths of barley, and he puts them on her back. And so she heads back in the early morning, and she gets to Naomi, and she tells her everything that happened that night. And she even says, he gave me this barley because he told me that I couldn't return to you empty-handed. And Naomi tells her that Boaz is a great man.
Oh, yeah. So she says, Boaz and his character, he's a great man, and he will see us through. God's favor is upon us.
And so they wait. And the next morning, Boaz gets up early and he heads into the town of Bethlehem, and he sits down at the city gates. And he waits there, and he waits for the closer relative of the covenant redeemer to come by, and he tells him.
He brings in the closest relative and 10 of the town's leaders, the townsmen leaders, and he says, we have business to take care of today. And he sits him down and he says, the widow of our closest relative, Amalek, Naomi, is wanting to sell her property. And you, my friend, are the closest relative. So you may take this property upon and you may buy it. But please understand that if you do that, you also, with Naomi and this property, you also have the rights to Ruth. That legacy for our closest relative of Amalek, that responsibility is for you now to have children with her.
And when he heard that the land was for sale, the closest relative jumps at the opportunity to have that land, and he says, yes, I'll take it. But as Boaz continues and says that you have to have Ruth and children with Ruth and inheritance with Ruth, he's like, whoa, I don't want this. Just kidding. I just remembered that I have my own inheritance, my own family to take care of. So you can do it, Boaz. And so Boaz, in those times when a covenant was shared between usually men, but they would take off their sandal. And so he takes off his sandal and he hands it to Boaz.
And that seals the deal. So now Boaz is able to bring in Ruth. They get married. He then takes responsibility. as well as for Naomi.
And God blesses them. And shortly after, Ruth bears a son. And the townswomen come to Naomi and they exclaim to her, Naomi, God has not left you and who you are. He is still here and he's still blessing you. And they say, this little boy, he's going to take care of you in your old age. And that Ruth, that Moabite, that daughter-in-law of yours, she's worth more to you than 7 sons. And so she takes such good care of the baby by coddling him and cooing over him, waiting on him hand and foot, like any good grandma. So much so that the townspeople start calling him Naomi's baby boy. But he did have a name, and his name was Obed. And Obed was the father of Jesse, and Jesse was the father of King David.